Hi, Andy. I see you're on there. Maybe.
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. I'll just hang tight here.
Evening, Dean.
I said hello. I was on mute.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I could tell. After all these months, it was nice to meet everyone the other evening.
Yeah, it certainly was.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Mark.
Hello, hi, Mark.
There.
How are you, Peter? Hey, Dean, you'll love this story. We referenced Herb Hahn the other day at our meeting,
Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
and I went to Windhover. You remember that place that he had in Rockport? He had a big camp that was girls.
Okay.
But now it does shows, and they did a Gloucester Stage Company show last night, and his daughter came up to me and introduced herself to me and said, "I understand you had my dad as a teacher."
Yeah.
Small world.
He was a long time English teacher at the high
Yeah,
school.
but died very young apparently, which I didn't know. Like I think in 1976, in mid 50s. So
Yeah. I think while my brother had him. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. The agenda looks very long, Sarah. I'm got a lot of entries. I assume they'll all be rather brief.
You're still muted.
Yeah.
Mark, you have a budget book sitting in the FinCom mail slot at Town Hall.
Oh, okay.
You asked to have a printed one. It's in that mailbox.
Okay. Thank you.
I saw it today.
I'll come and pick it up.
Yeah. Oh, good. Andrea's on. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Andy's on, Mark's on, Peter's on, Dean's on. Greg's not here yet. Just got off an affordable housing trust. Yeah,
I know Mike, Mike, I think was waiting to see if we were going to have a quorum because I think he had a conflict.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so he may or may not, we may not hear him.
He originally had said he was coming, but there is a 978-270-8732. I don't know who that is.
it could be him.
Greg's on. It is 7:02 PM and I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order. So I hope everyone looked at the information that Greg sent out at about 4:08 today.
Did not.
I glanced at it.
Okay. What I was hoping to do is to start with the summary that was towards the end, that shows the accounts with projected deficits and the accounts with available amount to transfer. Because that was kind of the summary of the things we need to approve.
Yep.
I saw it.
Do people have any questions on that?
Oh,
So what this is saying is that we are doing transfers of 191,400, including reserve fund transfers. And by the time we get done, there'll be 233,920 to be returned to the fund balance.
So Greg, maybe you could just for a moment, so I'm looking at that summary sheet. And so let me take an example where in the second column, it says health insurance and it says 62,100. And then it says 40B land use board's legal costs. So that's where the money is going to be applied. Is that the way to read this?
Correct. So
So
the
there's-
deficit was in the professional services legal line at
To the left.
6210. And then we're getting the 62,100 from the health insurance account.
All right, okay, I have
And
it
the
the other
reason-
way around. So the
and-
shortfalls in the legal costs and the money from the health insurance is coming to cover it.
Correct.
Got
And the reason why we incurred higher cost was primarily because of the 40B project and some additional legal costs and supporting some of the land use boards.
And then you, on the presentation, you have a lower portion in that column which says town clerk salaries, selectmen expenses, and the like. Those are also funds available for use, that those are quote excess funds available for use elsewhere. Is that correct?
Right, we're not anticipating that we need those other excess funds. So that's why we're showing that, as Sarah just mentioned, we anticipate closing to the fund balance from the expenditure lines about 230 some odd thousand.
So
Yeah,
the
okay.
negative 191,400 is additional expenses, correct, expected in those lines?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Hey Greg, this is Mike. Just that 233 grand. So that's like net of everything. That's like the net delta increase to the fund after all expenses, like everything.
Right, that's not including revenues that might have been above projection.
Okay, so so assuming revenues are above projections, which usually they are, then actually, okay, it's going to be 233 grand increase plus another increase of something.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
And that something is revenue above budgeted for each category.
Right, right. And primarily where we see that is in the estimated local receipts.
Got it.
Would you, Greg, would you have a gut call on that other number or no? That's like, we need to let the dust settle.
Yeah, it's going to be lower this year because of the beach revenue being so far down. But I would still expect a couple, 300,000 above what we projected.
Okay, so let's call it 500 grand all in when you add the 233 plus the other, right?
Yep, yep.
Okay. All right, thanks.
That's a fair guess.
Okay.
Okay, so the item on the budget is we're doing the budget line item transfers or interdepartment transfers.
Mhm.
So let's start with, we'll need a vote in a second on each of these. Let's start with the one that's for $9,500 from health insurance to health salaries. Do I have a motion?
Just one question.
Mhm.
Health salaries means what, Greg?
It's the Board of Health, so it's the public health nurse.
Very good. The Board of Health. Got it. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And I think if you look at number 4, it explains that it was additional hours to train and assist the new nurses.
Yep, I see it.
Okay.
I make the motion. Sarah?
Okay, do I have a
I'll second.
second?
I'll say.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Andy said aye. So that's 7 of us. I have to put in the number voting. That's 7 of us. No, Maury's not here. So that's 6 of us.
Yep, I said yes.
Okay. I just have little boxes to fill in.
You
Too
gotta
much
keep score.
information. The next one is for $62,100 from health insurance to professional services. Greg, am I correct that because we were unsuccessful at negotiating, we had more expenses than we otherwise would have, that the developer wouldn't pay for any of our expenses? Or am I wrong on that?
Sorry, Sarah, what do you mean?
I thought that when we were negotiating with the SLV,
Oh,
that if we were
yes,
successful, they would have paid some of the expenses, but if they weren't.
correct.
Okay, that's what
That's right. That's exactly right.
okay.
Greg, does this transfer give you any sense that what we've just budgeted for 22 could be not adequate? I mean, so these expenses will continue is what I guess I'm driving at.
Well, don't anticipate the 40B expenses to be as high. If we go into the next phase, there will be support from the state as well as from the developer.
I see. Okay, I didn't know that. So that will offset what
That should-
might be
Right.
increased expense.
Yes. So it's always a little bit of a crapshoot in terms of legal expenses, in terms of how much we're going to incur. But this year was unusually high.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sure ZBA was high,
Yes, yeah,
and I'd
Yep.
love to know what that number is sometime. We
yeah,
just
this-
had-
we can track that. We can track that with our
Yeah.
reports on KP Law.
We've just had messy stuff.
Yep.
These transfers from the, like the health expenses and stuff, they would normally just fall into the general fund for next year. But we're trying to earmark them for expense this year. Is that how it works?
Yes, in essence.
I mean,
we've
isn't
been-
it because we do a large budget item that it allows us to do the transfers and we don't have enough in the FinCom reserve fund to cover all these expenses,
Correct.
right?
Right, that's right. So these are expenses we've incurred and we need to figure out how to pay for them one way or the other.
I think Dean's question was why the strategy is there a larger strategy? And I think that there's not necessarily, because you just need to cover the expenses. It's not as though all excesses don't fall into reserves or free cash. I mean, if you took this, if you exhausted the FinCom's reserve fund first, would that make any bookkeeping difference in the long run? I mean, it doesn't matter
No.
where the dollars come from. Is that correct?
Right, it doesn't.
So do I have a motion to transfer the 62,100 from health insurance to professional services?
Yep.
I'll second it.
Dean will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 6 of us. Maury's still not on. Okay. The next one is $5,000 from health insurance to computer-controlled town clerk / election registration. I don't know what, I think we need an explanation of what this is.
So this is so our online fulfillment of beach stickers, dog tags, that sort of thing. And
Okay,
so we had a much heavier use of that because of COVID. People were using the online option, and we have to pay our provider on a per unit basis.
So put it another way, usually this would be handled in-house by in-house staff, and this, because of the turnover, it was handled by a vendor.
because town hall was closed.
A combination of being town hall being closed and COVID
Yeah.
and the staff turnover.
Will you continue that in the future, Greg? Was this a better way to do it with the beach stickers and dog tags?
It has some kinks in it that need to be ironed out.
Oh, okay. So it's
So-
not an automatic.
It's not an automatic, but I mean, we do want to certainly encourage sort of self-service online, but we need a little better system than we currently have.
Okay.
So do I have a motion?
Sure.
Peter moves. Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
second it. Yeah, Mark.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Approve.
Aye.
Do you approve, Mike?
Yep. Yes, Mike. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next one is for $9,300 transfer from town hall and common expenses to selectmen salaries because the communications coordinator was under budgeted and hours provided for minute taker were not budgeted. So I guess the question is, was this rectified in the 2022 budget?
Yes, yes, it was.
Okay. Any questions on this from people? Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion, we approve.
Mark makes a motion. Who seconds it? Peter
Peter.
seconds it.
Second.
Take a vote.
Aye.
All set.
This is Mike. I say yes.
Andy, did you say yes?
Andy says yes.
Okay. Don't know why I need to write down the number of people who voted. Just filling in my lines. Next one is $3,500 transfer from animal control expense and FICA to police training expense for additional fuel and safety / training costs not covered by grants.
Can we have a little background on this one, Greg?
So what we're starting to see, it's part of the new Police Reform Act. and mandating additional training requirements. And so I'm a little nervous about this budget going forward. We'll see how it pans out here. There is talk at the state level of providing more financial support for some of the new mandated trainings, but we haven't seen those dollars yet.
So our 2022 budget could be in doubt.
We may struggle with the 22 budget as well. We'll have to see.
Make a
Do I-
motion to approve.
Mark made a motion. Do I have a second? Peter seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Andy says
Lori
yes.
votes yes.
Ah,
And to change my number.
Seventh number.
Next one is for 15,000 from fire department expenses to fire department salaries. Additional coverage / overtime costs associated with 2 employees who are out on extended medical leave. There's also going to be a reserve transfer for some more.
Greg, does the star at the end of line 2 refers to anything particular?
But no, it doesn't.
Okay.
She just didn't fill in the rest of the 5,000 number there, actually.
And how are these employees doing? Are they back on the job?
Yes, they are. Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago, finally, we got Captain Digger back. He was out with a shoulder injury.
And the last sentence, the reserve fund transfer will also be requested in addition to the above amount.
We're going to take that up. We'll take
I
that
see.
up in the next agenda item.
I make a motion, we approve $15,000.
Mark
I
makes a
I
motion.
second it.
Peter
second it.
seconds. All in favor?
Andy says yes.
Aye.
Mike says yes.
Lori says yes.
Okay,
Maury says yes.
okay, we're good. 7. Now we move on to the FinCom reserve transfers, and at the end of the package that was sent, there was a summary of the FinCom reserve account. So we started with 160,000 on March 25th of 2021. We spent 40, and now we have requests to spend 35 and 52 for a total of 127, which would, if we approve these, it would leave 33,000 in our FinCom reserve. That makes sense?
Well, the math does, but maybe tell me more about the expense. So I'm looking at the 35,000. Is that the
Yeah.
one you want to look at first?
Sure.
So this is again a medical leave situation. The loss of 1 full-time dispatcher and several part-time. So there was a series of departures by dispatchers or illnesses by
Yes.
dispatchers?
Right,
Correct?
so we lost a number of our dispatchers. So what that means is we have to grab a police officer to dispatch on overtime. So that burns through more salary.
Got it.
And I assume.
Greg, why did those dispatchers leave? Was it personal reasons or what was going on there?
Yeah, so the one full-time dispatcher left to be a full-time officer, police officer.
In Manchester or someplace else?
Someplace else, yeah. And then several of the part-time dispatchers got full-time dispatching jobs.
Oh. So there's a competitive market out there for dispatchers is what you're telling me. People are getting
Yes.
hired away.
Yeah, no, it's been a struggle for us to keep a full complement of full-time and part-time dispatchers.
And that's not just new to this year. That's been ongoing for a while, Greg?
Yeah, it's been slowly getting worse, I would say.
Is that because our salaries are notably less, or is it just being full-time versus part-time? I mean, that's a different situation.
Yeah, I think, well, you know, you used to have officers from other communities picking up part-time dispatching jobs or dispatchers elsewhere picking up part-time, but we're seeing less of that.
I see.
You know, I think I'm speculating, you know, COVID has sort of recalibrated people's priorities a little bit, I think. So making the almighty dollar isn't the be all end all for lots of people.
Mhm. Maybe a little more encouragement to look to the regional system.
Well, yes, I mean, that's, the chief wouldn't mind getting rid of these headaches.
Yeah, I understand you.
But the chief has said very publicly that he does not support moving to the regional dispatch, right?
Right, but in a more candid moment, he will tell you that if that's the choice of the voters, that he's okay with it because it lightens his load.
Okay.
Great question, Mark.
All right, I make a motion, we approve $35,000.
I second it.
Peter seconds it. Mark makes a motion, Peter seconds. All in favor?
Andy says yes.
Mike says yes.
Lori says yes.
Great. 7. The next one is the $52,000 for fire salaries.
What was that for?
It's the-
Additional fireman salaries.
So we had a total of,
This is the medical leave situation again, right?
right, so,
But being taken from income reserve as opposed to available departmental funds.
right, we grabbed it in 2 separate spots. I mean, we could have grabbed it all from reserves.
Yeah.
And with-
Okay.
Hey,
so-
hey,
I wanted
Greg.
to take it from their expenses. When we
Right.
talked about their budget, they made sure to save in their fire expenses so we could save elsewhere. So that's
Oh,
why
hi,
I kind of
Andrea.
split it up that way. Hi, sorry.
No, that's great, thank you. I didn't realize you're on.
Greg, there's a parenthetical here. Give specific purpose and state why the expenditure is extraordinary or unforeseen. That requires some special point in the discussion here, given the necessary to have a specific.
Well, that's just, yeah, that's the generic instruction for that question number 4, that item number 4.
For the department head, right?
Right,
They all have that question.
they all have that, yes.
Have we had any response, Greg or Sarah? Our finance committee report cited on a couple of different instances pretty clearly concern about the fire department. But obviously, nobody raised any of those issues at town meeting, but I just wondered if there had been any reaction to that comment.
I haven't heard anything.
No, it's been pretty quiet. I haven't heard much at all.
Okay. I'd make a motion, we approve $52,000.
I have a second.
A second.
Second.
Dean seconds. All in favor?
Andy says yes.
Mike says yes.
Lori says yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So now Greg was going to give us an update on both the regional compost project and the trash removal and disposal contract.
Okay, so on the regional compost, as you recall, we had to go back out to bid. We did receive a complete bid from Black Earth this time around. They remain the only bidder. We thought we were going to get some additional bids. There were 2 or 3 other companies that asked a lot of questions and were reviewing the RFP, but in the end, none of those other companies submitted a proposal. So we're going through the proposal with Black Earth right now. The original proposal had a bit of a front loading cost to it. And we have asked them to go back and reconfigure that we would prefer a more level funded approach over the 20-year period rather than starting high and slowly getting smaller expenses for the town. And so they are working on that. Their proposal anticipates a tipping fee that we would receive for each ton that they process at the facility. So we would see a revenue stream that would offset some of our expenses. They're proposing to offer an operating expense of picking up all the curbside compost for a fixed fee regardless of the number of residents participating. So it becomes to our advantage, the more people that we can get to set out the bins curbside, it would benefit us. We wouldn't have to pay more for that, as is the current contract with them. It's on a per bin basis in batches of 100.
All right, what is our participation rate at this point in the program?
We have about 700 households participating.
Is that about a third? Is that about a third?
About a third. Yep, a little less than a third. Yes. Yep. It's been sort of plateaued at that level for a couple of years now. It ramped up. In the first few years, it grew pretty healthy leaps and bounds, but now it has pretty much plateaued. So it'll take a push to get more people to participate, I think.
And what is this project, Greg? I apologize, but I was a little confused. Is it at the transfer station? Is it still up on the current location? And is it the thing that we envisioned with them a while back that had a building built and all that, or are we in a different deal?
No, so it pretty much mimics the original concept of building a processing building at the current transfer station location, and moving the transfer station operations a little bit to the north, I guess it is.
Yeah.
So there would be a covered building with an aeration system and a biofilter to control odors at the bottom of the old landfill. And then as the material was processed and finished, that product then gets conveyed up to the top of the landfill where it is stored until it is moved off site to be sold. So that's in a sentence or two, that's the operation. So it's an expensive project. It's about $1.3 million to $1.5 million to do everything. That includes a thicker cap to the landfill. The state wanted a thicker layer between machines and tractors, trucks going up and down the landfill, and the liner to the landfill. So there's an expense there. The site requires some blasting because there's rock to fit that new building in. So that adds to the expense. And the state has put some relatively expensive requirements in terms of monitoring and construction oversight, as well as what they want to see in the facility itself in terms of the the air control for odors, et cetera. So I would anticipate that initially our costs will be slightly higher than they currently are. We're currently paying about $65,000 a year for composting. We'll be getting new numbers tomorrow, but I'm anticipating that being in the $80,000, probably right around $80,000 a year. But I should also say that we will no longer have incurred Saturday transfer operating costs. So that saves us in the $10,000 range each year. And like I say, that cost will not go up if we add more users. And then we will see revenues back to the town as the operation gears up and they process more tonnage. So that price, quoting that 80,000 assumes 30 tons of material processed a week. And they anticipate processing either on-site or collecting and transferring to another site. And we get paid for either one, close to 50 tons a week once they get fully operational.
And Greg, the 80,000 number, is that net of revenue or is that before the netting?
That's net of the 30 tons. And then
Okay.
anything beyond that, we would see a subtraction off the 80.
Yeah. And do we have any sense of the timing for this relocation of this facility?
So their schedule shows them being completely moved and operational at the new site come next February, early March.
Does that seem realistic to you?
Yes. Chuck and Nate have been going over that with them. They spent an hour and a half with them yesterday, just going over construction sequence and talking to their subs. They're bringing on T. Ford, who has done work for the town on a number of projects, has done good work for us. So we were happy to see them bring on board an experienced contractor like T. Ford. So that gave us better assurance that they'll do a good job with the construction.
And Greg, what have we contributed to this project so far?
Total dollars were probably close to 200,000 in round figures.
And we don't expect any more?
No, we would expect to spend, so we asked for another 30 at town meeting for construction oversight. So that was in the capital request.
Yep.
And so how do we get to the total of 1.3 to 1.5 million? How's
They
that
have,
gonna get
they
paid?
have a GoFundMe page
Oh, terrific.
for 350,000 that they're no longer getting from the state grant.
Yeah.
So they are trying that approach. They have committed loans of 900,000 and they say they have the remaining 450,000 in the bank. We've asked for some documentation of that before we get started.
So Greg, if I understand, we've put in, or we will put in about $230,000, give or take. We're a co-writer, so to speak, on a grant, and we're providing land. Is that Manchester's contribution to this whole equation, or is there more?
No, there's not more. The grant may not materialize. So the state has said, sorry, you missed the deadline of June 30th here. We're trying to convince them that they should free up that grant. They should allow one more extension, but they're saying no at the moment.
Okay.
So at this point, it would be all the cash would be their money.
Okay.
So our only contribution would be land, basically.
And the
And the
230.
engineering work.
Oh, and the engineering.
that we've already paid 230.
Project management too, right? Project management?
Right, right. So the engineering, I'll have to double check with Chuck, but I think I'm right when I say it's in that $200,000 range. And then, again, we asked for that additional 30,000 for project oversight.
So the total number all in will be about 230 at the end of the day. And is if that's correct, and then is the lease or whatever a 20-year lease, or is it longer?
It's a 20-year lease that can be renewed.
Okay.
Can it be terminated?
Yes.
I guess the only comment I would add in is when we started talking about this a couple years ago, Ann Harrison was on the FinCom, and there was concern that the contract or the agreement between Black Earth and Manchester Town of be very carefully constructed, particularly because of the watershed and all of that. And I would just underline that emphasis again. I would hope we wouldn't get ourselves into a problem with this facility and the water supply.
Right. So the good news is that the transfer station area drains towards, eventually towards Cedar Swamp and has a lot of ground to cover and filtration qualities before it gets into the Lincoln Well. It doesn't drain into Gravelly Pond, which would be a much more direct route to our drinking supply.
Mm-hmm.
So that does help in that regard.
It also
Okay,
helps that they're moving their leaching operations away from the road when they move it to the north. That was a good move.
Yeah, no, School Street isn't working well. It needs to go someplace else.
Are we through with this one?
So like I say, we're still working with them on final numbers, and we hope to have a presentation to the selectmen on Tuesday, July 6th, which is their next meeting.
And what is the timing of the DPW moving to Pine Street? That 3 years away or so? I know it's many steps, but is that
Just to School Street?
Yeah, that's at least.
at
That
least?
could-
Yeah,
I could well imagine that's on a 5 to 8 year time frame.
And I'm not volunteering by any means, but I think as part of this, there was a stipulation that a member of the Finance Committee be involved in the negotiation and papering of this.
So I'm happy to sit
Well,
down with,
like I said, I'm just going back to where we were when we had all those presentations, if you'll recall, with the selectmen. That was one of the considerations that was put on it. As far as you can go back and check. I may be, and my recollection may be poor. I don't think so.
No, I agree with you, Mark. That was a stipulation.
Yeah, there was definitely some serious recommendation that there be FinCom involvement with this, because it was essentially a commercial entity going into an agreement with the town, and tied into town resources. And there was also sort of a venture component to the whole thing as well. So I agree with you, Mark. This was definitely talked about in the past, and would be good.
Do I have a volunteer to do that?
and if there is a volunteer, which I'm happy to have one of you, we're sitting down tomorrow at 10, again, to review numbers and the proposal, the revised Plan B. So if that's, I know that's short notice, but if that's something that someone could do, then you'd be welcome. That's going to be in person here at Town Hall.
Well, I'm not in the Commonwealth tomorrow, so sorry.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm out too.
I mean, I have some engineering background, but I don't know much about the legalese between the town and a private entity. What would we be looking, what would we be concerned about? Subsidizing a private entity?
Well, I think some of it was Maury very appropriately raised some of the risks if the operation or the proponent or the operation were not to succeed or were to have some problems like possible contamination of the water. Obviously, they have lenders here and equity and everything. And so under what circumstances would the town have rights, given that those are pretty critical issues, water quality and whatnot, whether or not they're picking up the compost, we can probably, argue about that for a while, but critical things like natural resources and the ability to take the thing over, and under what terms, I think are some of the things we talked about.
Yeah, what if they stop operating, just leave a pile of mess there that we have to clean up?
Yeah.
It's part of it. And the other is the contamination aspect. What if,
Well, and
what
the
if-
other thing to be wary of with, if it's successful, is the size and growth. I mean,
Right.
controlling that.
I
That
mean,
would have
what
been,
if all the weight of the compost screws up the landfill cover
Mm,
and we have to redo that?
So I mean, that's where the engineering is the state's requirement for beefing up that cap comes into play. I mean, I think they're being pretty conservative in what they're
Okay.
recommending, and that's why, because they don't want to take that risk.
So that would be engineered based on the total of, do I have this right, total of 80 tons possible as maximum?
No,
Obviously going in
50.
and going out, but if for some day you just had the maximum, I don't know what the cleaned up compost load would be on the top of the landfill.
Yeah, we actually asked that question the other day in terms of, finished weight versus raw weight. And they said it varies tremendously depending on the materials, but so they didn't have a good answer, but it's at a minimum, it's 2 to 1.
Well, I think
meaning-
it's telling you that they're gonna, it can vary tremendously, but they're gonna say, what is the highest it could be?
Yeah, so we tell, the highest that we said would be allowed would be 50 tons raw a week.
Mhm.
And who's going to monitor that?
So they would be required to give us weekly weights.
Greg, when you said 2 to 1, I don't know what you were referring to.
So the raw is basically twice as heavy as the finished product. There's a lot of water weight.
Which means a lot of drainage.
Right.
Gotta go somewhere. I hate when I do this, but I can't make it tomorrow. But I would be willing to work with Greg and the rest of the group.
Thank you, Mark.
I knew, I should have known better.
That would be really good, Mark. This needs some little bit of oversight and careful thinking, or the town could get itself into some issues. That would be great. So,
Well, I have your cell phone, Maury, so stand by.
you do have my cell phone.
All right.
Mark, let me send you some materials tomorrow and you can,
Okay,
when you have a little bit of time, do a little reading.
All right.
and, I'll give you an update on the numbers.
okay, great.
Update on trash removal and disposal contract.
So our contract with Waste Management ends July 1st. We went out for a request for proposals. We received, I think it was 3 completed bids, maybe 4. The 2 competitive ones were from Waste Management and from JRM, who does, JRM does many of the communities around us. And so JRM came back with a more competitive proposal. They basically matched Waste Management's first year amount. They're very close for the first year, but JRM locks that in for a fixed fee for the 5 years. Whereas Waste Management wanted a 5% escalator each year and also had variable cost in there. So depending, they had variables for fuel, if fuel costs go up, we would have to pay them more. On recycling, they also said, if recycling gets worse, we would pay more, but if recycling got better, we would pay them less. Where again, JRM is just locking in a fixed price for the 5 years. So over the life of the contract, we save considerably under JRM, even if you assume that we don't have higher fuel costs and recycling doesn't go bust again. It's starting to come back a little bit right now, but it's hard to say how much it's going to keep coming back.
And the performance issues, Greg, of other communities been, do you have any sense of how the other communities have viewed the performance of JRM?
Yeah, they have very high marks. That was one of the things that impressed us the most, actually. And one reason why JRM can come in with a competitive bid is they currently are servicing Topsfield 3 days a week. And so they have that crew idle 2 days a week. So they would love to fill out the week for that crew and equipment by picking us up for 2 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So it fit very nicely with what they have going on. So the selectmen have approved going forward with JRM. We're working with them to do the transition. Somewhat unfortunate, it has to be a holiday weekend before the transition, but that's what it is. But they're gearing up now to begin service on the 6th of July. There's always a few hiccups in startup, but we're working hard now with them to get them familiar with the routes and systems in town.
And I gather Waste Management didn't want to vary their proposal in light of the more favorable proposal from JRM.
No, not much. They offered a few token things to try to stay at the table, but it wasn't matching what JRM put on the table.
As a data point, we've had some work with commercial work over the years with JRM, and they've been fabulous. I mean, very responsive and a good group to work with.
So it's a family-run business. Father and son are working side by side as the main principals. They also have their own recycling operation underway. They process all their own recycling, and where Waste Management was putting in pretty hefty fines for contaminated recycling and whatnot. That's not part of JRM's business model. They work with us to make sure we're getting as clean a recycling product as possible, but they don't fine us if we're not doing well. So
Sounds
we're
like a pretty-
optimistic. We're hopeful that it'll be a good move, and time will tell.
Sounds promising.
Yes.
So Greg, what's the dollar difference? Sorry if I missed it.
So by the end of the 5 years, it's like 150,000 a year difference.
150,000 a year difference by the end of year 5. So
By
it
the end of year
starts.
5, yeah.
So the
And what's the annual cost roughly? I know it varies between, because
Yeah,
one's more
it's in
prominent.
the 350 range, 350, 360 range.
so if
the
it's
base-
150 a year better by year 5 over a total of 5 years, what's the total savings or delta, whatever?
Yeah, so it's north of 300,000 over the 5 years.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
That's healthy. Good.
Yes, that is.
1 year free.
Yeah, exactly. 1 year nearly free.
Are we finished with this item? The next item on the agenda is to appoint a chair and vice chair. The terms run from July 1st through 6/30, so I thought it was appropriate to do that at this meeting. I am willing to continue as chair, but I'm also not offended if somebody else wants to take over as chair.
I think you've done a wonderful job, Sarah, so I would certainly be happy to see you continue.
Yeah, fabulous job. I'd keep it going.
Keep it going.
We have Sarah Melish as the chair of the Finance Committee for FY '22.
Second,
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Mike says yes.
okay.
Maury
Okay.
says yes.
Andy says yes too.
Okay. What about vice chair? Andy, are you willing to consider doing that again, or?
I would encourage someone else to show some interest. Frankly, I don't think I always have the time available to devote to it what it needs.
I'd be willing to help out with that role if you're tied up on time, Andy. But certainly open this up to anybody else who wants to run this rodeo.
Appreciate that, Maury. I'm happy to be a clown in the rodeo.
I'd move that we have Andy Olderman as the vice chair of the FinCom committee with support from all of us.
Rather than Maury?
Perfect.
No, I think Maury was saying that he would be happy to support Andy. Did I get that right, Maury?
Thought Maury was willing to do it.
If Andy is tied up with time, I am willing to do it, but I want to make sure other people have a chance to do this stuff. I do not need to be overstepping.
Sorry, I misunderstood. I'll withdraw my motion for the time being.
So you're making a motion for Maury to be vice chair?
No, I think what I'm kind of doing is asking Andy if he does have time, and if he doesn't, then I'll make a different motion.
So
So
I've been recently reappointed for another term, but feel like, I need another year or so before I can get more active in that, just to get my hands on the things. But, if there's a shortage, I'll be willing to help.
Sarah, have I been reappointed?
Greg will have to tell us. I don't know.
I don't think your term was up yet, Peter.
Yeah, it was.
Was it?
There was Peter, there was Maury, and another
Those-
one.
I'm sorry, so those were done last week, yes.
Yeah.
Peter Maury, who was the third one?
That's what I'm trying to look up quickly here.
Dean was the third one.
I
He
had the
was
1 year.
moderator. He was moderator.
Yeah,
Yeah, Dean was moderator. Maury. Yeah, those three. So Peter
Okay,
and
okay.
Maury were the two for the selectmen. And then Dean for the moderator. So
And the
yes,
reserve-
Peter and Maury are back on.
back on.
Your
Same
lucky day.
Peter.
I thought I heard the barn door opening and they were kicking us out to pasture.
I wondered.
On the vice chair, I can go either way. I'm just offering support to do it, Andy, if you are feeling overwhelmed or don't have the time. I'm absolutely fine doing it or not doing it. So that's my comment on the whole thing. So
I appreciate that. So I guess, I'm happy to continue on, and I'll raise my hand. Sarah, you essentially handle 90% of the load anyway, so it's not like I'm shirking a lot when I miss stuff, but I just wanted to offer it up to anybody that might have had a stronger interest and time.
And Andy, if there's things you need help with, please ask one. I mean, recruit one of us. I think you're hearing a general support if you need, some more hands on something.
Yep, that sounds perfect.
So
I
Mark,
would
you're gonna
would
make your
jump forward
motion?
and make I would
Okay,
make
go
a
ahead.
motion that Andy Alderman is vice chair for the coming year.
And I would second it.
All in favor?
Maury says aye.
Mike says yes.
Great. We don't have any minutes to review again.
Where are we on the minutes?
We're so far behind. We've got to catch up in July. Is there any other business to come before the Finance Committee?
Can you give me a little read of what, if anything, July and August will bring? I'm just like to know what to anticipate, if there's any particular likelihood of meetings, or it just helps me plan the July and August a bit.
What are people's thoughts? We had so many meetings in the spring. I guess, I think often we don't meet in August. Is that right, Maury?
That's correct. Yeah, usually we pass on August and jump on to things in September.
Yeah.
We always leave it, I think, up to you, Greg, in case something pops up that needs attention or advice or participation.
Right, no, happy to do that. So I think, looking ahead, it would be very helpful to, at a minimum, meet pretty early in September with the selectmen to really talk about fiscal 23 and what are the goals and priorities. And I'm hopeful by then making a decision about dispatch one way or the other. So to me, those are the dispatch and sort of the big priorities for the FY23 is what I would love us to try to nail down in September.
And do you anticipate the FinCom being part of any further on the dispatch review, or has that been pretty much stated at this point by the FinCom, and noting the financial benefit, but leaving the rest of the decisions to the selectmen?
I don't think we've done all the financial pieces.
So the answer is yes. And do we anticipate that to be during the summer? Because
So
it
I know
sounds like it.
So the selectmen will be holding a forum on July 19th
Yep.
on dispatch. So it would be helpful prior to that meeting to sort of run through some different scenarios. So obviously it's you have the two basics, keeping it in-house or going to the regional. But then, okay, so if we keep it in-house, what does that mean? Are we adding to the staffing or not? Different software, et cetera. And then if we're going to the regional, then a big question that still needs a lot of discussion is, what is the comfort level for a lobby for the police in terms of how does that get staffed if it needs to be staffed?
And I think we need the financial numbers for each component. So the taxpayers can understand and say, if it's going to cost X to have it dark at, in the midnight shift, is that okay or not? To kind of give them choices as to, because everything that's been published has been pretty sensational of assuming you're going to have a dark station. Well, nobody's ever really said you have to have a dark station. There's just a cost if you don't. And the police chief is not happy. I mean, fire chief is not happy. We need to understand what his requirements are and what the cost of that would be. Seems to me.
That also seems that to me, and also what improvement if we stay as a town-based system, a better sense of what those improvements are going to cost
Right.
in order to keep our system moving forward in the way the fire and police want it to be. So how do we collect those costs, Greg? How do we get a handle on that? Have the chiefs been asked to do more modeling, or how do we proceed?
Well, I guess, so what we have some broad brushstrokes. We have a pretty good handle on the cost for software, equipment upgrades.
Okay.
A lobby area, what that would cost to have it connected, wired to the regional center. And then we have a range of costs depending on how much you want to staff the lobby. From a low of about 50,000 to a high of about 250,000. So I guess we can break that range down into different, more concrete scenarios. So the 50,000 basically gets you, it's about 12 hours of coverage, assuming we can use current staff to cover during the day shift. So it's really the weekend coverage and evening coverage, not the whole evening, just like until 8 at night. And obviously the other end, the 250 end, gives you a receptionist 24/7.
For the stay-at-home model, do we have anything for 2 dispatchers on per shift?
For what?
2 dispatchers on per shift that the fire department has asked for?
So basically you would double what we currently are spending. So we're currently spending around 390 all in. So you'd be close to 800 if you really wanted 2 on 24/7.
If you could find them.
Right.
Exactly.
What?
And I mean, I'm still wondering. I'm still wondering if our pay rates are that competitive. I mean, I'm not sure whether
It
people
may
are being
be
drawn
that
away.
Something that what?
it may be that there's just not much action in this town. And a lot of dispatchers, it's too
I'm getting an
hard.
awful lot of feedback.
Or the dispatchers are going to the regional center because they have better benefits working for the state.
Andy, can you mute for a minute?
I don't think it's Andy.
Oh, you don't. Okay.
It might have been me, I'm sorry.
Oh, I think we got it.
just to be sure, Greg, I understood. So if you went to double staffing, 2 on, you essentially double that 390 number.
Correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure I understood it. Yeah,
Not quite, because there's some,
I understand, but
But-
you know,
but-
it's,
for broad brush purposes, that's what we're talking about. You know, 95% of the cost is labor, so.
So do we want to meet on July 14th to just go over the dispatcher financials before the selectmen have their forum on the 19th?
I'll be back. I gotta look at my calendar. I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
I'm still on the night shift, so it will be, you know, up till 8:30 or so. I could probably make it.
Mark?
Just looking.
Oh, okay.
Bastille Day.
Yes, there you go.
Yep, I'm good.
Maury, are you good on the 14th? I don't know where Maury is. I mean, maybe I muted him.
So Wednesday evenings are really difficult for me in July and August because I've got a pre-commitment. So I gather you're suggesting the 14th, at least when I left the screen. Is that still a proposal?
Well, we can pick another day.
Could you do it the 15th, Thursday? Oh, let me see, I'm sorry, when is the forum? Forum is when again?
Monday the 19th.
9.
The 19th, yes.
The 19th. Could you do it the 15th?
Are people available on the 15th?
And
I can't do the 15th.
Okay. Could you do the 13th, Tuesday?
Well, I have a building committee meeting, but I can probably skip that. Those are kind of check-in meetings at this point.
Why don't everyone send me an email and tell me your availability on July 13th, 14th, or 15th?
Okay.
Okay.
So we can figure out a day.
I can do any of those, so you can write me down for that.
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say the same thing.
And I can do the Tuesday and Thursday, but not Wednesday.
Okay. And I don't know whether Maury's still on or not. I never was figured out who he was.
I am on, and I'll check the email and get you an email on this, Sarah, if you can
Thank you.
hear me.
Okay. And Mike Pratt, I'm assuming the same for him. I don't know if he's still on. Yeah.
So Greg, given what you just said about the numbers, do you feel as though the numbers really have been collected at this point? I mean, or what homework and who's going to do it to make the meeting, whether it's 13, 14, or 15, productive?
Well, I think, so I want to do a little better job presenting different staffing options for the lobby. So I'd like to, rather just have a range, let me give some specific, here's option A, B, and C.
Right.
Show different costs and what it means for when the lobby isn't staffed and when it is. I'd just like to
Okay.
present that in a clear sense to folks so that you can better see it.
Yeah.
I think that's
that'd be
really,
very useful.
I think that's the nub of what we need to present.
It would also be helpful to have information on how long it would take a police officer to respond to the lobby once they were contacted by dispatch.
Yep.
Because I can't believe it's very long. It's not a huge town geographically.
Mhm. Mhm.
The other thing we need clarification on, so currently for a 3-alarm fire or bigger, it goes over to what's called District 5, which is in Beverly. We're we're getting some conflicting messages whether or not we could always transfer any active fire call to them or not. So we need to nail that down as well, because that has a big bearing on this whole concern that the chief has and fire chief has in terms of, a dedicated dispatcher to a fire incident.
Okay, yeah.
Has that transfer just been our practice, or is that mandated by something the state has said?
I don't think it's mandated. I think that's a practice, but I'll have to double check, Peter.
So Sarah, back to the general summer question. So we'll do some work on 13, 14, 15. Do you anticipate there being an August meeting? I'm sensing maybe yes, because this issue of regional dispatch is going to, I think, probably take the summer to iron out.
I think I'm thinking we can take August off and meet early in September with the Board of Selectmen on the dispatch
Gotcha.
and just what our goals are for 2023. Needs to be early in September because I hope to be away the last 2 weeks of September.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Sarah, I just have one or two quick things.
Sure.
One is I'm sorry I tuned in late and had phone troubles, but excellent job at the annual town meeting presenting. So maybe you already covered that, but great job on that.
Thanks.
And then the second is just a very, very quick update. I am involved with the collaboration group with the school, and you may have all heard there's been a little bit of friction with the Essex Finance Committee, and the school district collaboration group is kind of addressing that. And there are meetings going on through the summer. So I don't think it's a problem for Manchester, but there is a little bit of friction on the Essex side of the equation, and that's being kind of met and worked through. So any questions, give me a shout, but just wanted you all to know there is some stuff there and it's being worked through. So that's all I have to report.
Okay, thanks.
And Maury, the focus of that would be to help make future years be a little more fluid than this one has been with Essex? Is that the basic idea?
I think summing it up in a sentence or two, Essex has a number of new members on their FinCom, and there's a little bit of issue about the process and how it goes. I think they're all trying to figure out sort of where the boundaries and the rails lie, and they're exerting a fair amount of pressure on the school regarding this. But hopefully with a couple of meetings and some education sessions, we'll square this away before we get into budget season in the fall.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Craig, you still on?
Yep.
Now I have all these pieces of paper that I've
Yes.
signed.
Can you drop them off?
Drop them off on Monday with Sonia or?
Yeah, yep, that's
Okay.
perfect.
Okay,
Yep, because I'm going to put it on the agenda for the selectmen and they'll sign it as well.
well, that's what I realized they need to sign also.
Yep.
Okay, I'll do that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Hey,
Aye.
I'll take that as unanimous.
Yeah, you know.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you.
Sarah,
Thanks, everybody.
thanks, Craig.
Happy
Bye-bye.
4th.
Bye.
Yep, happy
Happy
4th. Bye.
Fourth.
Bye-bye.